All these plastic products are made from resin pellets like these. The company buys the pellets from suppliers and turns them into products using injection molding machines. At the heart of every machine is a mold, the part that shapes the plastic into the various products. A basic understanding of how this process works will help you avoid injuries and work safely. So let's start off with a look at what happens inside a mold by making a couple of boxes. Every mold has two halves, the core side and the cavity side, which close together. This is a two-cavity mold, so we'll be able to make two boxes at the same time, as you'll see. The plastic resin pellets have been heated until they melt together and flow as a very hot liquid. The plastic enters the closed mold under high pressure through channels or holes in the steel. First through what's called the sprue, then through the runners, and finally through a narrow gate entry into each mold cavity, filling them both completely. The mold is cooled by water that runs through other channels in the steel. This removes heat from the plastic so that it becomes a solid again, but now in a new shape. When the plastic is cool enough, the mold opens. The plastic shrinks as it cools, and it usually sticks to the core side. The mold has an ejector plate mounted with pins. When this advances, the pins push the boxes off the core so that they fall out of the mold. You can see how the plastic that was in the sprue and runner channels has also solidified and is still attached to our boxes. But we can simply cut that away, and we're left with our finished products. Many familiar items, like this plastic cutlery, come out of the mold with a runner attached. But there are also some molding systems in which the runner is eliminated, as is the case with these food containers. Still, for our purposes, the basic process, seen from the outside, is very similar. A large clamp closes the mold. The plastic resin is heated electrically and then injected under high pressure into the mold. Inside, as we saw, the plastic is cooled by the mold. Finally, the clamp opens the mold and the parts are ejected. The time for all that to happen is called the molding cycle, and it can last for as little as 1 second or as long as several minutes. And that's basically the process. The machines are designed and built to industry standards with your safety as a priority. A metal guard encloses the entire clamp and mold assembly as a barrier between you and the machinery, with various interlocking devices or safety switches that stop the machinery if you open any access doors. Similar guards protect you from hazards at other points on the machine. In addition, there are emergency stop buttons and lockout devices, as well as warning notices placed close to where the hazards exist on the machines. However, you will still need to understand the hazards most commonly found in the injection molding process so that you can make use of the machine's safety features and other safety procedures. There are 4 types of hazards that you must be aware of as you work around the machines. These are heat, electricity, high pressure, and moving machine parts. These symbols are typical of those found on the machines, warning you of these hazards. First, let's look at heat. We all learned long ago not to touch a hot stove, maybe the hard way. Well, there are hot surfaces on injection molding machines too, and these are usually much hotter than those found in any kitchen. One of these hot spots, shown here on 2 different machines, is the injection unit heater. This is the part that melts the plastic and injects it into the mold, so it gets very hot. Usually, this is covered by a protective shield, but even this can sometimes be hot enough to burn you, so don't touch it, whether the cover is on or off. Another hot part of the injection unit is the nozzle through which the heated plastic is injected into the mold. We've raised the guard and removed the safety switch here so that you can see how the nozzle and the mold connect. It is possible that very hot liquid plastic could leak or drool at this connection, so don't touch this area either. Also, before production begins or when it ends, the machines have to be purged out or cleared through this nozzle. The plastic that drools out is extremely hot, usually around 300 degrees centigrade or 600 degrees Fahrenheit. But it can fool you. It very quickly looks as if it has become solid, and you could think it was cool enough to touch. Don't. You could be badly burned. Even after the plastic has cooled, you should always use heat-resistant gloves or a tool to move it, just in case. Some molds could also have exposed hot surfaces. One example is the sprue bar that carries plastic from one side to the other in a stack mold. This bar is heated enough to keep the plastic flowing, and it's very hot, so don't touch it. The second type of hazard is electricity. Again, the injection unit heaters on any machine are an area to watch out for. If the cover is removed, the electrical connections may be exposed. These machines run on a high voltage, typically 240 to 480 volts, so you want to make sure that you don't touch these connections. Some molds also use high voltage heaters, so again, if you see exposed wiring like this, don't touch it. In fact, report it to your supervisor. The third type of hazard is high pressure. A garden hose needs only a relatively low pressure to shoot a jet of water, around 70 pounds per square inch or 5 bar. But it can still squirt quite a distance, and you can feel that the force developed is quite strong. Most molding machines operate with a much higher pressure. Even though it looks as if there's nothing happening here, this pump is creating an oil pressure of over 2,000 pounds per square inch, or 130 bar, both in the hose coming out of it and in the hoses around the machine. Damaged hoses or connections could present a serious hazard if they leak. Another high-pressure area to watch out for is back at the connection between the injection nozzle and the mold bushing. The hot plastic is usually injected under a pressure of around 20,000 pounds per square inch, or 1,300 bar. If the plastic did happen to leak at this connection, it could spurt out or splash a long way, so make sure the guard is closed whenever the machine is operating. The fourth type of hazard is moving machine parts. A lot of us know the pain of having our finger caught in a car door or trunk lid. Well, molding machines can pinch you too. In fact, they can cut a finger right off, or even an arm. They move quickly and with great force, both to close the mold and to eject parts. You should also be aware that robots and other devices quickly move into the mold area to remove parts. The guarding around the machine is meant to protect you from these hazards, so you should never reach over the guarding or under it. You could lose a finger or two, or even worse. Something unexpected could happen to knock you off your feet, and possibly even kill you. Your awareness of the potential hazards is the first step to working safely. Training is obviously essential before working on the production floor or operating machinery. Learning how to create and maintain a safe work environment for yourself and those around you is just as important. So let's start from the beginning and see what it takes to get ready to work safely. First, check the way you're dressed. Safety shoes can be stylish and comfortable as long as they protect your feet, but you'll need long pants and sleeves to protect you from possible hot plastic splashes. There should be no loose hair or clothing that could get caught in machinery. And always wear your safety glasses. When you get out on the floor, there are also several things to be aware of. Stay inside the marked aisles and watch out for other traffic like lift trucks, automatic guided vehicles, and other people who might not see you. Look at the floor too. Watch out for spilled oil, water, resin pellets, cables, and hoses. All of these can give you a nasty fall. So advise your supervisor or safety committee about the need to clean up these hazards. Also, watch overhead. Be aware of cranes and hoists that may be moving objects nearby. Be alert all the time. When you get to your machine, make sure you feel confident and properly trained, especially if this is the first time you are going to be operating it. If you don't feel confident, check the machine's manual or talk to your supervisor, keeping in mind that your safety is important. Check that the safety interlocks are working. Note all warnings posted on the machine and supporting equipment. Look for any broken or damaged guards. Check for any safety switches that have fallen off or may even have been deliberately disconnected to bypass them. Is there any bare wiring? Are there any oil or coolant leaks? Are there any missing covers that expose you to hazards? Report any deficiencies to your supervisor right away. Then follow company procedures to make sure that repairs both on the machine and on all other equipment are properly made in a way that will not compromise your safety or anyone else's. Also, make sure that you know where all the emergency stop devices are. There should be a red mushroom-shaped or raised button on the machine, as well as on supporting equipment such as conveyor belts, water heater units, robot, and other equipment control pendants. Don't be afraid to use them if there's a problem. Pushing the button is the quickest and safest way to stop the equipment and could save you or someone else from serious injury. Now, let's look at some do's and don'ts on safe working practices. Be careful not to spill the resin. As well as wasting expensive material, it's very dangerous. It's like walking on marbles or ice. So if you do spill some, clean it up right away. Do not use an air line to blow the spilled resin away. It could still cause someone to slip and fall, or might even blow into somebody's eyes. Instead, use a vacuum cleaner or broom. It's quick and safer. Another job you may have to do at some point is purge the machine. Don't do this before you know what material you are working with. Read the label on the resin container for any warnings first. Also, check the material safety data sheets, sometimes called MSDS, for this kind of information. Some types of resin can give off fumes that can be dangerous to your health if you're exposed to levels higher than the recommended standards. If you do have to purge a machine or clear a hot runner mold gate, remember, the plastic is very hot. When you are purging the machine, do not purge through the mold. The hot plastic could fall onto a moving conveyor belt and be carried off to someone who doesn't know how hot it is. Instead, collect the plastic on the machine bed or in a suitable container. Remember, for safety, don't touch this plastic without a tool or heat-resistant gloves. And dispose of it carefully in a specially marked container so that no one else burns themselves either by touching it or stepping in it unknowingly. The plastic stays hot for a long time. You should also be aware that the nozzle can sometimes become frozen or blocked up. If this happens to you, don't try to clear it yourself unless you have been properly trained. The hot plastic and gases can build up enough pressure behind the blockage to make it explode suddenly through the nozzle. So keep the guard closed at all times. Even though purging does take place behind the closed guard, there is still a chance that overheated plastic or hot gases could escape and splash or spray out. So if you are not involved in the purging, stay well clear and make sure everyone else moves away too. Another job that requires special training and clothing is the clearing of the feed throat underneath the hopper. In this area, the plastic can also freeze off and again explode suddenly if disturbed while under pressure. Leave this job to a trained technician and stay clear if you see this work being done. If the mold has a hot runner and you have to clear a blocked runner or mold nozzle, cover up in the same way so that you can't get burned. Hot plastic could spurt out unexpectedly. Even with a face shield on, never look directly into the mold gate opening. always use a mirror. If production is on an automatic cycle and the machine is molding and ejecting parts by itself, you may be asked to work at something else, like packing. However, if the cycle is not automatic, you have to open the safety gate, reach into the mold area, and remove parts manually. Always wear your safety glasses if you have to cut off the sprue and runner with snippers, trim the parts, or remove excess plastic with a sharp knife. Sometimes you may even have to wear gloves, because some parts may be hot or have sharp edges or plastic slivers called flash. And handle these sharp tools carefully. Don't, for instance, put them down with the points or blades sticking up. Also, when you have to unload parts by hand each cycle, it's easy to fall into a rhythm of open the gate, reach in for the part, close the gate, start the cycle. This can become boring, and it's very easy to become distracted. If your mold has a pinch point that is accessible as you open the gate, you could put your hand into it by accident and lose some fingers. Don't take this chance. Talk to your supervisor if you think there is any chance of pinching your fingers in this way. Either get the pinch point covered with a plate, or have the mechanism interlocked to the gate so that when you open it, nothing can move. Remember, the guards are there for your protection. If parts become jammed or they don't eject properly, you could be tempted to reach around or under the safety guard. Don't. Never reach into the mold area when the machine is operating. Always open the access gate first so that the mechanism stops. Of course, if the machine is running on an automatic cycle with a robot or other product handling device, you don't have to unload the machine manually. But even work areas for this kind of equipment should be surrounded by a guard or an awareness barrier like a fence. Again, if something goes wrong, don't reach into these areas. Stop the machine and use the lockout method provided for your safety. Then use the access door. Never be inside the area with the access door closed when the machine or robot is operating. And don't disconnect or bypass safety switches or other devices to fix things. In fact, never try to fix anything yourself unless you have been trained. If necessary, shut off the machine and call your supervisor. Even though it is your employer's responsibility to provide you with a safe place to work and to train you for your job, it is ultimately your responsibility to look after your own safety. They are reminders to you, and they are there for your safety, so pay attention to them. It's up to you to stay informed, to avoid taking risks, and to follow safety procedures and instructions.